Bigger than all my problems, bigger than all my fears. God is bigger than.
So let's talk about some things that we are all aware of, that we all see every time you turn on the TV, you read the newspapers, talking to people, if you're on Twitter or Facebook. Let's talk about some things that really starts discussing us. One, let's talk about miscegenation. That's the first thing that has happened that really was the moral decline of America, was miscegenation. That was in 1967 with Loving and Virginia. It's miscegenation. That was a breakthrough in order to start destroying our race. That is miscegenation. Then we have Roe v. Wade, 1973, abortion. Killing of babies, innocent babies. Steve, I believe Tom Bowie had talked about, we'd be horrified hearing about babies being thrown in a volcano to worship at God, but then don't think about anything about abortion. So since 73, just hundreds of thousands of millions of babies being murdered. And then recently, we have homosexuality running rampant. And of course, that was legitimized from the courts in Obergefell versus Hughes in 2015. Yes. Even though all the states were against it, it only took 5 judges to say, "Oh, it's legal now." Right. So we see those 3 main things. We're now seeing the perversion of our youth through trans teens, and the acceptance of different genders and transgenderism. I was thinking about this a couple days ago. Like when I was growing up, I couldn't even fathom seeing these things or even hearing about it. In New Jersey, some of you may have heard this, in a women prison, there's a transgender man that impregnated a prisoner. So I'm not sure if that transgender person is a woman or is a father or the mom. So I don't know if it's the birthing person now. Right. So you have this whole concept that basically is been on the flip side. Yeah. Moms anymore, they're not moms; they're birthing people. So if you're a mom out there, you're a birthing person. You're not a mom. So because dads can have babies too, So just be all aware of that. Don't get uppity now, you moms, thinking that it's just you. You're a birthing person, okay? Pronouns. You got pronouns now. He, she, or they. I'm starting to get emails from Legal Aid, which is a very liberal law organization through various states, Legal Aid. And all their attorneys now, on the very end, will say preferred pronouns. He, she, or they, however pronouns they want to use. That because now that's the thing to do now is what's your preferred pronoun. My preferred pronoun is dad. My preferred pronoun is Christian and a white nationalist. That's my preferred pronoun. So if you get emails from people that says he, she, or they, their preferred pronoun, that's something to think about. Assigning genders at birth. Okay? Assigning genders at birth. So now you can change birth certificates to identify of what you believe you are as an adult and not the gender you were born. So when you get older, if you decide, no, I should have been born a girl, so I want to change my birth certificate, now you can do that in various states. That's happening, and it's happening at an alarming rate.
Yes. I see those documents.
I bet you definitely do, and it's sickening. Where is Josiah? You can come up here, and Kenley can come up here, real quick. We can pass these out to everybody. Okay, pass those out. Make sure everyone gets it as much as possible. So we talk about these birth certificates. When you get older, you can change it. So when you're an adult, if you decide you want to be a girl, just change your birth certificate to a girl. Or if you're a girl and get older, you want to be a guy. If you don't know, I guess you could, say non-binary. I don't know what you want to be. So I'm passing these birth certificates out because I want to make it easier for you. So when someday if you're not sure what you want to be, I'm helping you guys out here. You can change your birth certificate, Yeah, so if you were born and you were weighed 6 pounds and 9 ounces or 7 pounds 3 ounces, and you thought, I was a big baby or small baby. Well, you can change what size you were when you were born, or how long you were. If you're how many inches, 25 inches or whatever you were as a baby. You want to be a bigger baby or smaller baby. You can change that. So I'm just trying to help everyone out there. So that's kind of up to you what you want to do. So I try to be funny. I really try to work hard on it. So anyway, so I try my best. Pedophilia, that's disgusting. That's disgusting.
Yes.
But you know what? They're not pedophilia anymore. Okay, some of you are aware of that. Now they are calling themselves minor attracted personality. That's the actual terminology that these sick perverts are now calling themselves. We're a minor attracted personality. I'm 35, 40 years old, and I like this 8 or 9 year old. You're not pedophilia. You're someone who's just attracted to minors. And so trying to soften the approach that there's nothing really wrong with you. They're decriminalizing sexual children crimes. Many of you are aware of this. Yeah. The Black Lives Matter movement. They're of course glorified in the media, and we all know that they're a Marxist organization. Bent on destroying anything that has a foundation of a white Christian government. We have men playing in women's sports now. Men that decide, hey, I want to try to be a woman. They try to have a sex change or something like that, and then now we hear about them playing in women's sports. We hear about equity in colleges and military schools. Basically, all that is dehumanizing whites, trying to make it more fair for non-whites for the equity approach. So now we're just going to take away from these racist government or the colleges that were white, and now we're going to try to give it to your non-whites. Sex education camps for kids. Now you're seeing that on TikTok and stuff like that. Right. And it's I've never yet been able to go on TikTok and try to look that up. I've seen reports about it, like, that is just disgusting. But they actually have that, sex education camps for kids. It's disgusting. Netflix, social media. They got now emoji now that shows a pregnant man. So, you have emojis of all different characters and stuff like that. Now they have one of a pregnant man. They trash our Constitution and our founding forefathers. We see that nonstop anymore. They're calling our Christian faith, they're calling it racist, and they're bigots and haters, and trying to vilify anything that's remotely pure or good of our foundation of our beloved republic. We see our race in a spiral decline, which is a form of white genocide. The only reason why our white population is still a white population statistically is because of the baby boom generation. And baby boom generation, obviously those are the vast majority of white people that were born right after World War II. They're all starting to die off. And as a result of the dying off, you're drastically seeing a racial demographic shift, becoming a white country to a non-white country. and it's happening very, very quickly. Once that baby boom generation has died off, America will be a non-white country. Again, I'm not telling you anything new. They project by 2040 that America will be a non-white country. I think it will be before that. And as we all know, that's a statistically of a white population. They don't talk about families that may have adopted a non-white. They don't talk about families that have accepted the idea of race mixing or homosexuality. Those numbers are drastically is worse off than what they are claiming to be. We see this massive immigration that's happening right now. We all see it, and it's scary when we see this massive immigration. March alone, just last month, okay, the Border Patrol has captured over 220,000 illegals coming into the United States. Just March alone. So that's just what they've captured. They don't talk about what they have not captured. And that doesn't mean those 221,000 doesn't mean like they just gave up. They're going to be coming back. 1.6 million from October to March of this fiscal year. 1.6 million illegals that they have captured. All of that is obviously a population replacement. So when you talk about see the news and you watch the news and they're talking about, don't they know what they're doing? They're allowing all these illegal aliens. Don't they know what they're doing? Yes, they know what they're doing. It's designed. They don't care that it's destroying the government. They don't care if it's destroying the economy. They don't just care about it's going to cause murder rates to go up and rape and robbery in your cities and counties. They don't care about that. Their agenda is population replacement. That's all they care about. So as long as they can get them in more and more, that's all they care about. And that's just illegal aliens. We don't even talk about the legal aliens. All the H-1B visas that allows millions coming in a year to work, to take over jobs. They don't care. They don't even talk about that. So these are scary numbers. Land loss of immigration. People don't even think about this. The land loss of immigration. I've spoken about this several times over the years. We think of illegal aliens coming in and these legal aliens, foreigners coming in, but we don't ever think about the land loss, the amount of land that's being lost because of the illegal immigrants that's coming in the United States. So the land developed because of illegal aliens, the land developed has grew from 76.9 million acres, that's 112,356 square miles in 1982, has grown to 113.3 million acres. That's 177,096 square miles in 2010. That's how many acres that has been lost because of illegal aliens. So when we see all this growth, population growth, and the loss of our habitation and our land and rural areas, for the vast majority, it's land loss because of illegal aliens. I always think it's funny when you have liberals that says, no, don't you care about the environment? Don't you care about that? They're hypocritical because they don't care about the environment. Because if you're having that many, 113.3 million acres being lost due to illegal aliens, you definitely don't care about the environment. So what is that 113.3 million acres, which is 177,000 square miles? That is equals the size of Maine. Think about this. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware, New York, and Pennsylvania. That's all the size of those states, all developed from agricultural loss of our natural habitat because of illegal aliens. Okay? So that, to me, that's scary. We see pornography, we see drugs, we see promoted and glamorized. You look on YouTube channels and Netflix and some of these other, and they glorify pornography and they glorify this drug usage culture. So these are all the perversions that we are just seeing here very, very recently. The race mixing, homosexuality, Those are the two main points that we saw in the very beginning. Then all these other things are now coming about because of that. So to me, that is scary, it's disgusting. I can't even imagine what my kids, when they get older, what they're going to have to see. And like I said, I've been involved in this racial movement since birth. And just to think of these things that we see now, I could not even imagine that.
Oh, yeah.
And this is happening like very recently. Right. So I think about what my kids are going to have to go through. And so we see the Hollywood, we see the social media, we see the schools, we see the churches, they're accepting it. Yes. So-called these Judeo-Christian churches, they promote the race mixing, they promote the homosexuality. They even promote some of these transgenderism. It just baffles me. Yep. You know, these Christian churches that you see out there, and these mega churches, like Smiling Joe in Houston, Texas, has over 30,000. It's just the filth that they have and they promote. Yeah. So our Christian faith for years has always stood against these things. Yeah. They first off, they couldn't fathom any of this, but they always stood against race mixing. They always stood against homosexuality. Yes. They always stood against abortion, killing the unborn. They always stood against this depravity that we see in front of us now. And so when we look at that and we just like, my gosh, it can't get any worse. Well, it is going to get worse. Yeah. And there are things that I can't even imagine that we're going to see, that we kind of talked about yesterday. I'm thinking in my mind, I can't even imagine what would be next. Oh, yeah. And unfortunately, we're going to see that. Yeah. Unfortunately, some of the older folks won't see it, but my kids will see it. Other kids out there, they're going to see it. And so we have to understand when we see all this filth and the sickness out there, is this something that God is just like, oh my God, I did not know this was going to happen. I can't believe it. I didn't think this was going to occur. And sometimes we have to sit back and realize that this is a divine purpose. Yeah. This is a divine purpose that's being allowed. We talk about that, when the cup filleth over, that is when God will return. And I'm like, looks like it's filling over now. Amen. And it's like it keeps on pouring in there. It's like it's not filling over. When is that going to happen? Yeah. And we don't understand that there's a divine purpose behind this. And there's a divine purpose of why it's being allowed. And there's a divine purpose of seeing all this sickness that's rising up to the level that we're seeing it as it is. And so we have to understand that God has a purpose behind this. So we're going to talk about this. So we're looking at the definition. I'm going to talk about the definition of what we call about purging away the dross. So the dross is defined as the scum thrown off from molten ore or metal, waste matter or refuse. It's also defined as something that's considered worthless or rubbish. To purge means to cleanse or purify by separating or carrying away whatever is impure or superfluous. In metallurgy, the ore or metal must be reduced to a liquid state by the application of tremendous heat so that the impurities will have an opportunity to rise to the surface as slag or dross. This is to be removed, leaving the metal itself free from any impurities. And God uses the same procedure as today in removing the impurities that we are seeing around us for illustration purposes. So our ancestors, as we all know, we read the Bible, we all know in Isaiah's time, there was rebellious, they were refusing to hear the call of righteousness and to walk with God. If we read Isaiah 1:2, it fits perfectly what's going on today. It says, Amen. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for the Lord hath spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. Yep. The ox knoweth his owner, and the donkey his master's crib. But Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider. Yep. O sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed for evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backward. Why should ye be stricken any more? you will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faint. From the sole of the foot even unto the head, there's no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Your country, this is perfect description today. Your country is desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. Your land, strangers devour it in your presence, and is desolate as overthrown by strangers. That is a beautiful description. That's what's happening today. And I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago when I was reading this. I was like, it really makes sense. 20, 30, 40 years ago, people reading that passage are like, yeah, it's going to get bad. But, they don't see it. They don't see how bad it is. We see it now. It's in front of us. Right in front of us. Everything we do and see, we are seeing it. Yes. And then what does God say? Isaiah 125. God declared, I will turn my hand upon thee and purely purge away the dross and take away all thy tin. And so when we read about turning the tin part, that talks about a fire of tribulation. That talks about the meaning of purging the evil from Israel. And this is something we have to understand. That's what's happening today. That reference about purging the dross, that is a reference of what's going on this very minute. Amen. And the two greatest sins that we talk about here is about homosexuality and race mixing. Those are the two greatest sins that we are going to see before God returns. Now, when we look at this purging away the dross, we have to understand that there's much a symbolism there about our people. And because when you purge away the dross, the scum around it, what it does with the impurities is taken away. And you have a pure stone underneath it. Okay? And so when that comes down to the hardness of our heart, when we see all these things happening, it's causing our people to start reflecting of what is going on. And we look at Matthew 23, Matthew 23, 36. We all remember where the lawyer, he goes to God, Jesus, and says, what is the greatest commandment? And I was thinking about this actually yesterday. I was thinking, a lawyer, when they go and they're asking questions at a trial or whatever, you don't ask a question unless you know the answer. That's right. You don't say, I'm going to ask a question. Hopefully it's the right answer. You're asking a question because you already know what the answer is. Yes. And so I'm convinced that lawyer, when he went to Jesus, he was like pretty stoked up. He's like, I'm going to ask him the question. What's the greatest commandment? Probably already knew what he thought was going to be the answer. Well, the Pharisees thought was going to be the answer because they were going to try to trap him. And what does Jesus say? He says, the greatest commandment is to love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. That's the first and greatest commandment. Mm-hmm. But then he didn't stop there, did he? Mm-hmm. He said that, and the second unto it is love your neighbor. And we understand that means our people. When we look at Jeremiah, it's talking about, or Leviticus 19:18, it's talking about your own people, your racial kindred people. Amen. Those are the two greatest commandments. You can't separate them. Loving your God and loving your people, your racial stock. And when you start destroying your God, your Christian faith, and not loving your people, what do we see around us? We're seeing homosexuality. We're seeing race mixing. We see our people being destroyed, our culture being destroyed, because they no longer love their people. They don't love their God. Those are the two greatest commandments. Of everything else. As I was just imagining when Jesus said that, I'm thinking of, what would the lawyer do? I'm like, he's probably like, wow, I did not expect that. And he probably didn't know what to say because he probably was going to try to trick him on some technicality of, aren't you supposed to worship on a particular day or say Jesus some other name or something to trick him up. And God just bypassed all that. I said, no, love your people, love your God. Those are the two greatest things. And so when we see those things that's happening about loving your God, loving your people, we understand, those that read the Bible and understand scripturally, that we understand that those two greatest sins that we're going to see in the last days. Talking about the days of Lot, and which is homosexuality. We got race mixing and sodomy. We see what is happening around us, because everything around us determines based on your race and your gender. Gender and your race. Those are the two things you're born with. I mean, you're white or you're not white. And if you're a female or a male, it's not like a doctor's coming out and saying, well, I'm not sure what that is. I don't know. It might be a boy. I don't know. I guess when we get up and he gets older, I guess we'll determine at that point. That's what they're basically telling us. So they're just saying, well, I guess I'm going to assign you. You're a female this time, baby. Next baby, let's say that's a male. So that's basically what they're saying. That's what they're wanting us to believe. And so when we see the two greatest sins, race mixing and homosexuality, that all comes back to what is the design. The design is to destroy God's law and destroy his race, his racial people, our people. And so we have to understand that. We have to understand that is the process that is happening. And so when we see this drastic change that's happening around us, we have to understand that this is what God's holy design to purge these impurities away. He has to bring all this sickness up to the level that we all can see. Amen. He has to bring that up. We read in Isaiah 1:27, God says, Zion shall be redeemed with judgment, and her converts with righteousness, and the destruction of the transgressors, and by the sinners shall be together, and they that forsake the Lord shall be consumed. And then we continue to read on about the tribulation of heat. Isaiah 26:9 says, when thy judgment are on the earth, the inhabitants of the world will learn righteousness. Hallelujah. So when we see all this sickness and this filth that's coming up, and it's happening quickly, we're thinking, well, it can't get any worse. And God's saying, oh no, I'm going to make sure we're getting all the impurities out. I'm going to get every single one. The ones that you can't even fathom. Right. I'm going to get them out. You think pedophilia was gross? You think transgenderism was gross? You think all these other things we see, that's gross? You haven't seen nothing yet. Right. I'm going to bring every little impurity up in the air so we all can see, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to destroy it. Amen. I'm going to purge away the dross. Hallelujah. You're not going to have any impurity when I come back, because I'm going to destroy it all. Yep. And so when we look at that, when we look at what's happening, all this evilness around us, we have to understand that we have a God that is coming back. He's bringing all this impurities up, and what he's going to do is judgment time. That's right. Oh boy, I can't wait till judgment time. That is a divine purpose for God. He understands that those enemies out there, has a program and design to destroy him, his holiness, but also to destroy his people. What's the two greatest commandments? Love your God and love your people. Those are the two greatest commandments. Amen. Nothing else matters. Those are the two greatest commandments. Because if you destroy those, then you start destroying the morality, and you're starting to destroy his people. And so God is looking to bring all these impurities, because all these impurities we see are stemming back from all of that. Right. So that's something that God is looking at in order to bring his judgment. So God says in Isaiah 51:6, my righteousness shall not be abolished. Nevertheless, through judgment, the Lord has declared in Isaiah 5:15, the mean man shall be brought down, the mighty man shall be humbled, and the eye of the lofty shall be humbled. Hallelujah. And all this brought about when this judgment is in the earth. And we read on, Isaiah 5:16 says, the Lord of hosts shall be exalted in judgment, and God that is holy shall be sanctified in righteousness. So we know that this judgment, the purpose of this judgment, is to destroy evil and these evil men out there. And the Lord is revealing his righteousness by revealing the impurities out there. That's right. That's what he's doing. It's hard for us to understand that. For us Christian moral people, it's sickening to see that. Yeah. I know it's hard to say, oh, well, it's a design, it's divine God providence. But it's still sickening. Yeah. I mean, we should hate it. Amen. We should not be just soft about it. That's happening. God's going to return. we should be wanting to throw up
Amen.
to see this filthiness that we see around us.
Amen.
And so God is going to purify through the trials of tribulation, the fires of tribulation.
Yeah.
Jeremiah 30:23-24 says, Behold, the whirlwind of the Lord goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked. The fierce anger of the Lord shall not return until he have done it.
Amen.
And until he have performed the intents of the heart in the latter days, he shall consider it. It is this time that we need to realize that our people are basically being pressured. Our white people out there are being pressured into what's happening right now. They're being pressured to really start reflecting of this filthiness that they're seeing around us.
Right.
They're starting to reflect about the judgment that's happening.
Amen.
They're starting to reflect to understand that America used to be a beautiful, great, white Christian country. And what is happening to it? They're starting to reflect the judgment that is coming. I often think about, you see some of these movies or commercials, and they like try to glorify America like it used to be, but they're not trying to intentionally do it, but they're in a way trying to say this is how America used to be. You know, and they're like, yeah, it was a white Christian country.
Yeah.
That's why you're trying to have nostalgic about the past, because there's nothing nostalgic about the filth that we see around us.
No.
You know, is disgusting. But it's all in order to pressure our people
Amen.
to come to Him and to start standing up for His race, His people. Our covenant people in the Bible, we are the same people. And so when we understand that concept and we understand that we ourselves are being pressured and to start reflecting that the filthiness that we are seeing, the scum that's happening around us, is definitely for a divine purpose. So this purpose of this judgment is not only to punish and destroy those that are attempting to circumvent God's laws, but also it is to save His people.
Mm-hmm.
That is the reason for the judgment.
Amen.
What does judgment do? It cleans, it purifies.
Amen.
And the purpose of that judgment is to purify and clean the remainder of what's left over, His people. That is the purpose of this judgment. When you destroy the impurities, the scum, the dross of this impurity out there, we are coming out with a nice, clean, holiness reflection of what God's intent is to be. And we have to understand that when we see this pressure that's happening to us today, when we see the impurities that's happening to us, we have to reflect that it is definitely for a divine purpose. So we have to start thinking about that. And when we think about this divine purpose of these impurities, that should help us understand that we individually, we have a duty and obligation. We have a duty and obligation to help awaken our people.
Amen.
We have to do that. Yes, it's a divine design by God of what's allowing these impurities. But with these impurities coming up, we still have to help save our people. We have to help let them know of what's happening and to steer them towards our side. That is something that we have to do every single day. It's easy to just be bombarded with so much of this filth and just like, God, I just got to give up. I can't take it anymore, you know? And to me, that is very, very selfish.
Yes, it is.
If you have that in your heart, you need to pray and pray to have a better understanding of what's happening. You have to have a better understanding that, yeah, you may die, but my children are still going to have to see this filth. Other white children are going to have to see this filth. And so if you have your heart is basically has that concept is like, well, I'm not going to really see it much longer. Thank God I'm going to die. Thank God that I won't have to see any more of this gross happening. Shame on you. Shame on you if you have that in your heart. I often will have people come into my office and they'll do like estate planning. and they'll. And of course, there's older folks, and we're talking. I'm always kind of looking for an angle to start steering the direction of race. I always do that.
Sure.
And and we started talking about immigration and the demographics changing. And they also they look at 4 code words. Everyone has code words. Oh, it's really getting bad. Yeah, it's getting bad. Yeah. Boone County is not like it used to be. Yeah, I remember. It was a small town. Yeah, it's really growing. You're trying to have that little carrot on the fishing pole. You're trying to get them to come towards your direction. Yeah, or they may be moving here. Why do you move here? Well, where are you from? Well, I'm from California. We moved here a few years ago. Oh wow, California. That's a beautiful state. Oh, not where I'm from. Oh, it's not where I'm from. It's gone really bad. They don't want to say why it's getting bad.
Right.
It's getting bad. It's like, I've been in California a lot of times, and I'm saying, you mean like, is it really busy? Is like a lot of people living there? Well, yeah, there's a lot of illegals. We're kind of all dancing around the race issue. So I'm going to take a couple steps back, and they're going to come towards me. So, race issue. Oh, okay. Oh, illegal aliens are really coming in there? Yeah, they're bad. We just had to get out. We had to move here. And so everything's around race, and everything's, thinking about that. And then I'll have in the office, and we'll talk about it. And it's like constantly, it's like, I'm just thank God that I don't have to see this anymore. I mean, 5, 10, 15 years, I'm going to be dead. Thank God I won't have to see that. And I'm thinking well, do you have children? Do you have your grandchildren? Yeah, I do. Well, where are they living at? Well, they're living there. They're going to have to deal with that. I'm like, you SOB. That's just what I'm thinking. You SOB. I mean, how dare you say I got out of it, but hell with my kids and grandkids. Don't really care. Shame on them. Shame on them.
Amen.
But in their mind, they got out of it. That's all they care about. And they don't even understand the concept. And I'll always tell them and say, well, you're going to die, but what about your kids and your grandkids? And they always will say, well, I didn't really think about that. And I'm thinking, how can you not think about that?
Really?
How can you not think about you fled? I'm glad you left, because everyone is going to leave if they can. But not to encourage, not to care about your children and grandchildren? I mean, shame on you. And it's like they just don't understand that concept, So we as individuals, we as white Christians, we do all various things in life. Not everyone's attorneys, everyone's not construction workers, not everyone's barbers, not everyone works in the food industry, not everyone do different things. Everyone does separate things. But we all have influence around other people. We all have people that we can make a connection with. We all have people, friends and family we can talk to let them know what is going on. We can't have this passive attitude. It's like, I know the truth. I don't really care if anyone else knows the truth. So what? Well, shame on you. You have a duty and obligation to continue until you die.
Amen.
To be reaching our people. You have a duty and obligation. John Knox, he had a book he written, and one of his biggest quotes was, "Spare no arrows." Spare no arrows. When you die, don't spare an arrow. If you have 2 or 3 arrows in back, use them before you die.
Yeah.
It's the same concept. Until you die, we all have an obligation to awaken our people in every aspect. Donating money, donating your time, talking to people, get involved in racial politics, get involved with a local Christian Identity Church, get involved in maybe a conservative organization or a group in your local area, and steer that towards us. People are lazy. They don't want to do anything. Great opportunity to be a chairman for a local political party. Right. You can steer that towards the race issues. So it's something that we all can do in something in our life. Yeah. And Debbie was very good at how she was talking about that we all can do something. Politics, racial politics, all involves around that. So we have to understand that this is what's happening in today's time. The impurities that we are seeing that's happening and that's rising is something that's divine by God. It's designed in order to make sure that we all see all these impurities, and more than important, not just us, because we see it, and we have seen it 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 years. There's been people talking about this, all these impurities that's going to come and rise. And people couldn't see it because what impurity? America's a 92% white Christian country. What are you talking about impurity? You know, they couldn't read Scripture and really understand it. God's making sure that we're all understanding Scripture now. He's making sure that we all see these impurities. Amen. And so now, the vast majority of these white, middle-of-the-road, white men and women out there, they are seeing the impurities happening right in front of them. And that is a great opportunity for all of us to be speaking to them, to talking to them, to awaken them, because that's a duty and obligation we have. So in closing, sound the alarm in Zion. That is something that we have to do every single day. It's hard. It really is. It's hard to be called a racist. It's hard to be called a bigot. It's hard to say, oh, you hate sodomites? You hate homosexualities? You're a racist. You bigot? Well, okay, I guess I am. You know? And once you do that, they're like, okay, I don't know what to say now. You know? And so it's like, so what? That's all we have to deal with nowadays, is being called a racist and a bigot. Oh, poor me. Okay, I'm gonna go home and cry now. You know. So when calling you racist and you're calling it being called a bigot, and gosh, what are the names you can think of? Homophobe. Yes, yes, and what is it? Transphobe, yes, absolutely. We have the psychiatrist here that's really going to start getting in my mind now. If no one knows about Carrie's, yeah. So, all these terminologies of that, all they have to do is call you names, and so often that's all we have to deal with today's society, is be called evil, racists, and bigots, and transphobia, and transgender, I don't know, all these other names. So anyway, I guess I'll start making up names. So anyway, once you have all these, that's all we have to worry about. That's all we have to worry about. You know, like I said, we have these two signs that come up north, and I have my law office sign, each one, and occasionally someone will put something on social media, and you'll go to like a queer organization or something like that, and all of a sudden, like for 2 or 3 days, Scott's getting the phone. Hello, okay, I'll be. You're a racist. Click. Or whatever thing, it's like, okay, well, it'll die down, and it'll go back to normal. And so the fact is, that's all we have to worry about in reality. But we still have an obligation. We still have a duty to awaken our people. You can still pass out flyers. You can send email to someone. You get on a social media website and post something. 10 conferences, 10 church meetings. Amen. There's things you can do. Bring your children to these things, because when you get old and die, your children are not attending it. Their children are not going to be believing the same thing that you're believing in. It will die with you, and that's a shame. So in conclusion, the second time, we need to just remember that every day we wake up and we see what's happening around us, the impurities around us, that's a great thing. It's a great thing that we are able to see and witness the purging away the dross. It's a great thing, because we're seeing things that God has told and prophesied from the beginning of time. And I think it's fortunate. Susanna, she always says, these are wondrous times we're living in. Absolutely, these are wondrous times we live in, because we are fortunate enough to be born in a time that we are seeing the Holy Scripture being fulfilled. Boy, I guarantee there's people thousands of years ago which would say, I wish I could see this. And we're fortunate we're able to see this, what's happening. So count it as a blessing. Count it that God has thought you worthy enough to be born in this day and time to awaken His people. That's something we should be happy and glorify Him every single day, that He thought worthy of us to do that.
Bigger than all my hang-ups, bigger than anything. God is bigger than any mountain that I can or cannot see. Bigger than all my problems, bigger than all my fears. God is bigger than any mountain that I can or cannot see. Bigger than all my questions, bigger than any